The other door you talk about a lot is creativity and imagination. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Imagination and creativity to me is the same thing. Yeah. Imagination is literally the way how we create life. Mm-hmm. We create reality by first imagining. And then through imagination we crystallize by acting on our imagination. If action doesn't follow imagination, nothing happens. So imagination needs action, otherwise it doesn't mean so much. But imagination is our way, the way how everything exists. What we call God, I'm not so much into the idea of God, but because I think we all are source. But source use imagination to create. We are the product of source imagination. We are the product of source imagine. Source imagine us, and therefore we are. So imagination is the power that we have, and is extremely powerful, much more powerful than most of the people present in this planet believes. Why? Because we have all been discouraged since we were little children to do not use imagination, you know. Don't dream, you have to look at reality. Don't, you know, let go all these dreams and these fairy tales, but follow the curriculum, become obedient, and everything will be fine. That's the propaganda that we, but in reality, without imagination, whether it's negative or positive, nothing would exist. We will be in a space of nothingness. From the space of nothingness, we start to imagine, and therefore we start to create.
Do you think that some people are imagining something but they are not aware of it?
No, we are constantly imagining.
Yeah, we constantly. Okay.
We all are constantly imagining, and we are constantly creating. We are constantly creating. If we wouldn't constantly create, we wouldn't have any experience. We would be in a white light. We wouldn't see anything, and so we are constantly imagining, and we are constantly creating. Everything with the mirror of life mirror us back is the product of our imagination. Now, the imagination is also involved, the process of imagination is involved also at the subconscious level, at the unconscious level, which means that often we imagine and therefore we create unconsciously. And that's what makes things very complicated. Because I suspect that in the subconscious and unconscious, a lot of things happen that are not supposed to really to happen. By communing with these doors that I am mentioning in these videos, I think we start to disempower more and more our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind. We start to bring more and more to consciousness our imaginative doing. But yes, we are constantly creating. We are creators, so every thought that we exude, every feeling, every word is a tool of creation, and it comes from our imagination. And
I guess for some people, maybe imagination is also something that is more like almost like a fairy tale, you know? When you talk about imagination, it's like you imagine something that you perhaps don't have in your life, or maybe you wish to have in your life.
all right, so is this pair of glasses a fairy tale or is real?
Yeah, I guess it's real.
It's real, okay, but these glasses exist only because someone at a certain point imagined them. If nobody would have imagined this would not exist. So all the so-called reality that we are so attached to it has been imagined.
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
You cannot, if you imagine something, it must exist. You cannot imagine something that somewhere in some dimension exists.
Yeah.
By imagining it, you crystallize it into your present reality. I'm talking about the physical reality, the journey of being physical. So it's fascinating to see that the so-called rational people, logical people, create a line between imagination and reality because they are 100% connected. Without one, the other one cannot exist. And yet we have been so brainwashed that we think that imagination is not real. But again, we go back to the glasses. If didn't exist, the glasses, when they didn't exist, how did they came to our life if not through someone's imagination? And so anything else, the chair where you're sitting down, the lamp that is giving us light right now, this house, the car that we drive every day, all these are products of imagination. So I think imagination is quite practical, and it's actually quite unpractical not to use it. And by the way, you cannot not use imagination. It's impossible.
But in what way could we use imagination for a higher purpose?
By following our joy. Our joy is imagination in support of life, in support of love, in support of oneness, in support of our inner expansion, in support of everything that exists. When we imagine out of fear or out of contractive emotions, contractive mechanism, now we are creating through negative imagination, so we are creating separative situation, and so we create more distance between us and source, between us and life and ourself. And so we cut off from life. We can eventually become non-imaginative in a way, and this is very much what's happening with the society. Aim is to completely eradicate from our system the power of imagination, because it knows how immensely powerful we are when we imagine. So either it forces us to imagine and therefore create negative outcomes, or it distracts us completely, constantly from our imagination. And as we disconnect with our imagination, we lose more and more the power to create, and we become more and more dependent to technology, to a virtual world that society, the matrix, the artificial intelligence wants to create. It wants basically to create a completely virtual mental world where we are just completely fascinated by a sort of a video game, a live video game, and we don't imagine anymore. We are in a robotic state of being, and we lost completely our ability to imagine, and therefore we lost the ability to create, and therefore we have lost our connection with Source. And that would be the ideal outcome for the system, because in that way we would become 100% food for this situation, and we would be perfectly obedient robotic zombies, basically, where there is not any more life within ourselves. So in the other hand, by following constantly our joyful imagination, we step out from this. We actually don't step out. I believe we actually transform this system back into love, into life, because this system has lost itself first, his ability to imagine, and it needs us to imagine for it. By following our joyful imagination and our creativity, and we recreate, we transform everything back to his original blueprint, which is oneness and is pure love. So that is the potentiality that we access to when we choose to follow our joyful imagination.